I'm going to go ahead and tie up some egg flies here. I'm using a Mustad 921/41 size 6. It's a container of 50 and it's a 2X strong hook. This this package of hooks is going to cost you about $9, and then you got to get it delivered. So usually about $12. You know, delivered from Amazon or whatever. And so it's going to break down to about 24 cents a hook. And you can buy egg flies from, you know, online fly shops and stuff. They'll say they're salmon eggs, and they'll sell them for as little as 99 cents a piece, but they're not going to be tied on a 2X strong hook. And that's going to be a problem because you're just going to bust those hooks if it's not a 2X strong. So buying a fly like this from a fly shop on the river here in Michigan is going to cost you somewhere between, if you're buying them in quantity or if you're buying small quantities, you know, somewhere between about $1.50 and $2 a fly. So it's going to cost me less than 50 cents, you know, to tie these up, not counting my time, of course. So, you know, maybe it's more, you know, closer to 35 to 40 cents. But so, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm using this McFly foam as my base. And, you know, you can get this online or at a fly shop. This package was about $3.50. Here's another package of it. Depends on when you buy it and where. This was $4.25, just a little different color. I like to use the orange to kind of simulate the nucleus of the fly or the nucleus of the egg. This is $3.69, and I'll show you a close-up of these at the end of the video. This is Alaskan Roe. It's glow bug yarn is what it's called. And so yeah, that's what we're doing. So if I just kind of grab this, what I do is set up an assembly line. So I've got 3 small bunches that I put together here of my base egg, and then just the accent color 1. The yarn is a much different material than the foam, so it's more robust. Now, some guys will tie their eggs with just, you know, 1 clump of each. It's been my experience over the last 25 years or so of tying my own flies and fishing these, that if you don't make a relatively robust egg, it'll fish, but it won't fish for a long time. The eggs that I make, you know, you could potentially fish this for hours and hours and hours, and that's a lot of casting, a lot of wear and tear on your flies. So, you know, when you've got most of the money is in the hook, if you tie a crappy fly that falls apart on you, you've lost, you know, you've lost your money. Not to mention you got to change the fly out. So, all right, I'm going to start by just dressing the hook here, and I kind of tie in just a little ways back from the eye. I want to, and thread's cheap, by the way. Dress these hooks up good. Your fly won't slide around on you. And it's all about tying a durable fly. So go ahead and get that started. Trim off the base like that. What did I do with that? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just grab a clump. So I'm going to go ahead and pinch it here. Come around 1, 2. I like to go 3 around. Ties it up good. Pick that up. Come around the front. Come around the back. I'm kind of tying a V around it, but I'm going to tie it up there good. And I'm going to go around it quite a few times. Again, if you're buying a production fly for 99 cents, you know, you're getting a couple of wraps here and there, and that's it. So I'm going to whip finish it. I'm going to whip finish it a couple of times. Really tie that on there good. So then from here, you lift this up, and depending on the size of the fly you want, will determine how close you trim it off. But I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And there's an egg. You can see the nucleus on it. So there's one. I'll do another one. You know, if I'm all set up and really going after this, I can tie a dozen flies pretty quickly. And it's a good thing I can, because as I take people out fishing, you know, Laura and I went out on the Pere Marquette, and she fished on Friday, and I would guess we went through, yeah, more than a dozen, but less than 2. That's going to happen from time to time. You got these sharp hooks, and they will snap you off. Now I'm not going to take that all off of there. I'm just going to dress right over it. More line on there, the better. I'll pay a little closer attention. And that's the thing. You could put, you know, get your whole fly all the way done and snap your thread on that, the end of that hook. They're acid sharpened hooks, chemically sharpened, and they are sharp, so you're going to want to watch your fingers. For salmon, a size 6 is what you want. If you're doing steelhead, you'd want to tie up a size 8. Steelhead are a lot more finicky than salmon. A salmon fly doesn't have to be pretty at all. It just has to be there. It's really at getting that fly on them at the right time. Get it in front of them and trigger their predator response. So, you know, there again. 2. Now go ahead and do up a complete orange. That Alaskan roe orange is deadly. We catch a lot of brown trout on the orange, because the brown trout are hanging in the holes. We like to fish the gravel. You get up and you get the spawning salmon on the gravel. A lot of times you're fishing those fish in, you know, a foot of water, 18 inches of water. And but of course, right behind the gravel bed is usually a pocket, you know, a hole where the river kind of tails off. And so in that case, you've got you get steelhead and you get trout that are sitting in that pocket water, that hole behind them, and waiting to just sip up those eggs as they're spawning. Now, with this Alaskan roe glow bug yarn, it's thicker than that foam. So I'm only going to use 2 pieces here. It's pretty robust. But I'm going to tie it exactly the same as I tied, you know, the other one. So I'm going to cinch that down good. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, give it another one. Come back around. And it's thicker, so it's harder to work in at the base to get a good V on it to hold it in place. But again, don't be afraid to use thread. It's cheap, and it's your insurance policy to hold your fly together. And I go around 5 times on my whip finishes. So I've double whip finished it, broke it off. Then here again, hold it up, trim it off, and there's an egg. You know, that'll fish great. So that's what I'll be doing here today, is tying up dozens and dozens of. Let's talk slinkies for salmon fishing. This is for Muskegon River fishing. We're using fly rods, but we're not using a traditional fly line. We're doing what we call a chuck and duck approach. And what that means is, rather than casting the weight of the line like you do in a traditional fly fishing scenario, we're actually using what we call a slinky. And what that consists of is some camo cord like this that we cut into strips. We use fire and pliers to melt the end of it and clamp it off. We load that with some split shot, and then you can set them up into different sizes. Like this happens to be a 1, 2, 3, 4. You just count the split shots. That's a 4. If you need a little weight, you go to a 5 or a 6. You're up on gravel and 10 inches of water, maybe you only need a 3. So you go down. So you have to do up a number of different sizes. And the way that we rig these up is this gets rigged, or this gets attached to a snap swivel. So that snap swivel goes on there and attaches to this. I'll show you. I'll put together a whole, I'll show you my setup here in a different clip. But let's just kind of stay on task here, and I'll show you how I make slinkies. Because here again, if you go to the fly shop, you're on the water, you really need these. And why do you need a slinky? Why not just use a bunch of split shot? Well, we're in the bottom of these rivers where there's rocks and gravel, there's branches, there's logs, there's all kind of stuff that can get you hung up. And just using split shot on a line, that stuff's going to get hung up on the bottom. When you put it in a little sack like this, that drags without getting snagged on the bottom. It bounces right across the rocks and the gravel, and it moves along with the current. And that's what you really want. You don't want your split shots down there getting snagged and stopping on the bottom, because every time that thing stops, it feels like a fish. So, and that's what you're looking for when you cast out. You're wanting this to kind of drag through or bottom bounce. You can feel it, but when your rig stops, you need to set the hook. So that's why the slinky comes in so handy. And that's one of the preferred ways of doing it if you're going to do a chuck and duck here in Michigan with the fly rod. And a lot of guys are spin casting with these too. Same rig, just a chuck and duck. So, okay, let's go ahead and let me show you how I do this. So we'll start with, all right, you start with a piece of camo cord. You cut that off, and inside that camo cord, bear with me, I need my glasses. All right, I'm back. So here we go. You cut a piece of that camo cord off of there, and it's got a core in it. That's what makes it, so strong. Now, so there's your core. You just pull that core right out of your camo cord, like so. Now you've got a hollow piece of camo cord. You discard the core. So now you got a hollow piece. You cut them into different lengths depending on how long you want to make them, right? So you start out, stick an end in there. And what I've got is just a pair of pliers there. But that melts it into like plastic. You crimp it off and it's ready to go. Now I can take my tweezers here, and these are fly tying tweezers to grab, different fly tying material, whatever. But I can open up that sleeve that way, and then I can just go ahead and get it started by putting some shot down there. Once you get it going, I like to run 2 of them right down to the bottom. And you got to be careful. Some of these the mouth will be really widely open and it'll snag on the material. You may have to go through, depending on the packet of shot that you buy, you may have to go through and hit some of these with your finger just to shut them up so that they're not open as much. But if you're doing a lot of these and you start using your finger, your thumb and your finger is going to get pretty sore from that shot. So if they're really open, examine the package that you buy, and that's hit and miss. Some of them, they're not open much at all, and they work great. Others, you got to darn near clamp down every single one of them. Shake them down to the bottom. I think that I'm going to, let's see if I can get this into a 5 or if I'm going to have to use just a 4. When in doubt, make sure you can seal it good at the top. This will go just fine for a 5. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off just a little bit of the excess here, because the more material you have, the bigger that plastic end gets, and that'll get hung up on your line and your swivel, make it harder. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp this off. Just want to get it going good so that it'll melt, and then clamp it off, and there you go. That's a number 5. So you want to go to the river with a lot of these, because it depends. Like on the Muskegon River, we don't lose as many of these because we're not losing the whole rig. On the Pere Marquette, you have so much deadfall, and it's such a such a brush-choked small stream that you're going to lose your entire rig multiple times. So that means losing swivels and slinkies and everything else. On a big river like the Muskegon, where you're not getting wrapped around logs and stuff like that, you're going to break off your 8-pound tippet and keep the rest of your rig, so you won't lose as many of these. But again, you want to also be prepared for river conditions. If it had just been raining and the river's up much higher, that current is swifter, I might need a 7. I might need a 6. If the river's normal or even low, I might only need 3s and 4s all day long. So you need to be prepared with different sizes, and that's what I have to put together here today. So I'm using zigzag split shot size number 7. And this is just a package from Cabela's. I don't know what I paid for it, but it's pretty cheap. You know, camo cords, whatever, $3-4. You could probably get this at Walmart or a fly shop or online or whatever. So that's how I'm making slinkies. That's what we're doing. I'll show you how I set up the whole rig in a different clip. Okay. Let's talk about how I rig up my salmon fishing rig. So I never claimed to be the greatest artist, but we'll take a look at it here. So this is your fly rod. You're going to come out with your fly line, and we're using typically a running line, not a floating sinking line or a sinking line, just a regular running line. Or on some of the rods, we'll even use some of that amnesia, like 30-pound amnesia, because that line's just going to get beat up. And the amnesia cuts the water pretty good, so does the running line. So you're just going to use a running line up to here. You're going to attach your leader to your fly line. And for this, I'll use a nail knot or, you know, a host of different knots, depending on what line you have. But just go ahead and connect your fly line to your leader. Now for leader, we're using 15-pound Maxima, and we're using the Ultra Green Maxima. And so you got that 15-pound leader. Now your leader, what I do for my leader is I tie whatever the length of my rod is. So if I'm fishing a 9-foot rod, I'm going to tie on a 9-foot leader. And so you'll tie your leader on. Then you're going to drop down here, take a snap swivel and a slinky, and put that on your, don't tie it to, but just run your leader through it, loop it through the eyelet and let it move out of the way. Then you're going to tie a barrel swivel to that. So now the snap swivel and the slinky can move up and down your leader, and we'll get back to that in a few minutes. So from here, I'm going to tie my tippet to the other end of this barrel swivel. So I use a 8-pound Maxima tippet on salmon. So, and I usually like that to be somewhere between 18 inches and a foot long, depending on how swift the current is, etc. And if I'm going to run a 2-fly hookup, I might shorten this first fly to about a foot and then tie a dropper. You tie that around the bend of the hook here and just run a second fly on there. You know, again, anywhere from 12 inches to 18 inches back. And it depends on which river you're fishing. you know, that kind of a thing. So, you know, that's your setup. Again, you know, your fly line is a running line. You're tying 15-pound maxima, the length of your rod. So if you've got a 9-foot rod, tie a 9-foot piece of 15-pound leader on there. Don't forget to put your snap swivel and slinky on there before you tie your barrel swivel on there, or you'll have to retie it. So then to the barrel swivel, you're catching your tippet. Again, I like to start out at about 18 inches long. And then your flies are going to be size 6, double X strong hook if you're fishing for salmon. If you're going to do the same setup for steelhead, I would still run the 15-pound maxima leader, but you might want to drop that back to 12 to 15. Instead of 8-pound, you're going to be down into the 4 and 5-pound tippet. Now, you can use a fluorocarbon, but I'm not going to get into that here. If you're going to stick with maxima on steelhead, I'm going 4 and 5 pounds. And then a size 8 hook, regardless of whether you're doing an egg or what have you. Now, I'll kind of come over here and show you. There's the maxima. I don't know. Ultra green. So then here's your snap swivel with a, right there's your snap swivel with the slinky on it. There's your barrel swivel. You want these to be pretty robust. I mean, I think that's a size 7, but I wouldn't swear to it. These are some of the flies that I use very successfully for salmon. There's the green caddis that I talked about. Here's just an orange, you know, like I tied up there. There's the fly that I tied up. I like to go with that McCheese color with an orange nucleus on it. And then this is a double. It's just tied on a little bit longer, like a nymph hook. And I just tie a double egg on there. Those are super successful, particularly if you're trying to fish the back end of the gravel to get into the trout and the steelhead in the back of the run or in the hole behind. So those are the components that I'm using. That's how I'm going ahead and running my salmon setup for Michigan drift fishing, Michigan chuck and duck. All right, here we are. We're videoing. Go ahead and lift him up. Show it.
How do I lift him?
Whatever. So we think Laura might have her master angler. It's down. Now lift him up. Look how big that thing is, man. So we're about to make we're about to measure him and get him back. All right, we're gonna come back.